The glass door gave a soft rattle as the man stepped inside. The clock on the wall showed it was nearly 10 p.m., a time when Ocean Breeze Spa should have been dark and silent. Maya Torres was wiping down the front counter, exhausted after 10 straight hours on her feet, when the sound of black leather shoes stopped right in front of her. The man wore a dark suit, a white shirt with no tie, and carried a faint scent of mint and rain. His face wasn't unfamiliar, yet Maya couldn't remember where she had seen him before. Something about him made the air in the room slow down. "I need a massage, right now. Private, no one else but you." His voice was low and firm, not the kind of tone that belonged to someone waiting for a service. Maya glanced at the flipped closed sign, then at her boss packing up behind the counter. The older woman simply looked at Maya and gave a small nod. "He's paying 5 times the usual rate," she whispered. Maya took a deep breath and offered a professional smile. "This way, please." They walked down the quiet hallway, the warm yellow light spilling over the honey-colored wooden walls. In the small room, the scent of lavender oil drifted softly through the air. Maya set out fresh towels, adjusted the temperature, then turned back. The man had already taken off his jacket and was sitting silently, as if calculating something in his mind. "You can lie face down. I'll begin." He gave a small nod. Not another word. When her hands touched his shoulders, Maya felt muscles as hard as steel, but they trembled slightly. Not from the cold, but from restraint. She tried to keep her breathing steady, watching him through the mirror. A faint scar stretched across his left wrist, as if something had once been cut or lost. "Office job?" she asked, just to break the silence. "Used to," he replied, eyes still closed. His voice carried the deep tone of someone used to giving orders, but tonight it held a trace of loss. Maya stayed silent and kept massaging. With every touch, she could feel him fighting to hold something back. Half an hour later, she spoke softly. "You seem tense. If you'd like to stop..." "No, keep going." From then on, the only sound in the room was the whisper of the ocean breeze slipping through the door crack. Maya felt something strange. Every other client made her count the minutes until it was over, but with him, time seemed impossible to measure. When the clock struck 11, she gently said, "All done. You can sit up now." The man slipped his jacket back on, fastening each button slowly. Maya folded the towels and gathered the oils, just like any other night. But instead of heading to the front desk, he placed a thick envelope on the table. "I don't take tips," she said quickly, a little uneasy. He gave a faint smile. His pale gray eyes met hers, calm, steady, so quiet it made her heart skip. "It's not a tip. There's $50,000 in there." She let out a soft laugh, thinking he was joking. "Sleepy." He paused, his voice rougher now. "I want you to spend one night with me, not in the way you're thinking." The air froze. Maya stared at him, unable to believe what she just heard. "You're trying to buy me?" "No." He picked up his coat and adjusted his cuff, as if he'd just said the most ordinary thing in the world. "I just need someone to stay with me tonight. Silence is fine." She was about to respond, but his eyes, the eyes of a man who had lost all faith, stopped her cold. He took a business card from his pocket, placed it beside the envelope, and walked out. The door closed behind him, leaving only the faint scent of mint hanging in the air. Maya stared at the envelope, her hand trembling slightly. "David Grant, Grant Ventures," read the embossed letters in the corner of the card. The name stunned her. A man like that? What was he doing in a small place like this? And why her? Outside, the rain began to fall, heavy and cold. Maya turned off the lights, but the glow of that envelope seemed to burn in her mind, heavier than any sum of money she'd ever seen, and more mysterious than any offer she'd ever heard. She didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of everything she was about to lose and find again. Maya didn't sleep that night. She sat at the small kitchen table, the yellow light casting shadows on the damp wall. The envelope still lay there, unopened. Every time she reached for it, her hand drew back, as if afraid that whatever was inside would change everything in her life. $50,000. Enough to pay off her mother's hospital debt, move out of this rundown apartment, and start over. But in exchange, for what? One night with a stranger, wealthy, mysterious, and his promise that it's not what you think. She'd met her share of odd clients before, but none who made her feel both afraid and curious at the same time. Maya opened her old laptop and typed David Grant. The results were suspiciously sparse. No Facebook, no Instagram, no LinkedIn, just a few old articles. Grant Ventures once led the biotech industry. CEO David Grant disappears after the tragic death of his wife. She read the lines over and over, her heartbeat quickening with every word. The death of his wife. A blurred image of a young woman and a child appeared on the news page. Gentle face, soft smile, and eyes filled with a strange sadness. Maya closed the laptop and looked back at the envelope. It felt as if something or someone was pulling her toward this story, though she had no idea why. The next morning, she stood in front of her small mirror, wondering what she was doing. She didn't wear makeup, just a neat, modest cream linen dress. "It's not about the money," she told herself. "I just want to know what he really wants." She took a cab to the address on the business card, the Horizon Hotel, the most luxurious resort along the coast, the kind you only ever see in travel magazines. The receptionist smiled and pressed a button for a private elevator. "Mr. Grant is expecting you on the 27th floor." When the elevator doors opened, the scent of sandalwood and cool ocean air drifted out. The penthouse looked straight over the sea. The glass doors were slightly open, the white curtains swaying gently. There was no wine, no candles, no music. Only him, sitting by the table, the top button of his shirt undone, a cup of hot tea in his hand. "You came," he said calmly. "I was afraid you wouldn't." "I almost didn't," Maya replied, still holding the unopened envelope. "You should probably tell me what this is about before I head back to the elevator." David set the cup down. "I only have a few conditions," he said slowly. "No touching, no filming, no photos. You just stay until morning. Talk if you want or stay silent." "That's it?" "That's it." He looked out the window. "I just need to feel someone's presence, someone who doesn't want anything from me." His voice was gentle, but there was a deep crack running through every word. Maya hesitated. She couldn't understand why a man who could buy anything in the world would want something so simple. "You could hire a whole team of therapists. Why me?" He gave a faint smile. "Maybe because you were the only one who didn't ask who I was when we met." Maya said nothing. The answer was both cold and strangely tender, touching something she didn't want to name. She set the envelope on the table. "I haven't used the money. If I stay, it's not because of that." "I know." He stood and walked out onto the balcony. The ocean breeze caught his hair, carrying the scent of salt and the rhythm of the waves. Maya glanced around the room. A framed photo of a young woman hung in the corner beside a child's messy drawing, crayon lines spelling the words, "For Daddy." She didn't need to ask. She knew they were his wife and child, and that this place still wasn't free of the people who lived on in his memories. All evening, they spoke little. Maya shared a few small stories: her mother's treatment, the long hospital night shifts, her unfinished dream of becoming a nurse. David listened, occasionally asking short questions, his voice that of someone trying to remember how to hold a normal conversation. When the clock struck midnight, he turned off the main lights, leaving only a soft golden glow in the corner of the room. She thought he was about to say goodnight, but instead, he asked, "If you lost everything, would you dare to start over?" Maya looked up, caught off guard. In that instant, every fear, exhaustion, debt, and quiet longing inside her collided at once. She couldn't find an answer. David smiled, a gentle, strangely sorrowful smile. "I once couldn't." Then he turned away, lying down on the sofa by the window, staring out at the pitch-black ocean. Maya stayed there for a while, listening to the sound of waves, like a heartbeat coming from far away. She didn't know it yet, but that night wasn't just a night to stay. It was the first night she would touch the part of his past he'd been trying so hard to bury. The next morning, Maya woke later than usual. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, falling across the envelope still sitting on the table, untouched, unopened. She couldn't tell whether she felt lighter or heavier after that strange night. Only one thing was certain. The man named David Grant was unlike anyone she had ever met. When Maya returned to Ocean Breeze Spa, something in the air felt different. The morning was unusually busy, customers coming in one after another, yet her boss kept glancing toward the door as if expecting someone. While Maya was changing the towels in one of the therapy rooms, a knock came at the door. A middle-aged man in a gray suit stepped in, holding a small leather briefcase. His voice was polite, so precise and composed that it sent a chill down her spine. "Miss Torres, I'm Oliver, Mr. Grant's personal assistant." Maya froze. "Is he all right?" Oliver gave a faint smile but didn't answer directly. He opened his briefcase, took out another envelope, and placed it on the table. "Mr. Grant asked me to deliver his thanks. Just a small token of appreciation." "I don't want more money," Maya said firmly. "It's not a tip," he emphasized. "Simply gratitude." Just then, the spa owner walked in, her smile brighter than ever. "Oh my, what an honor. Please thank Mr. Grant. We're so grateful for his kindness." Maya felt the heat rush to her face. She wanted to disappear, but the owner grabbed her hand, lowering her voice with barely contained excitement. "You know someone like him?" "I didn't expect that, Maya." "Tell me, did he say anything about investing in the spa?" "No, it's nothing," she snapped softly, pulling her hand away. But the curious looks from everyone in the room made it clear. Starting today, she was no longer just another employee. When the assistant left, Maya opened the envelope. $10,000. Her chest tightened. It was enough money to make anyone else thrilled, but for her, it only made everything feel more tangled. She made up her mind. She had to return it. That afternoon, Maya went back to the Horizon Hotel. She planned to tell David clearly that she wanted nothing more to do with any sort of arrangement. But when the elevator doors opened on the 27th floor, the hallway was empty. The door to the penthouse was ajar, and inside, nothing. Everything was gone. The paintings, the photos, the teacup, the chair where he'd sat. The room felt hollow, carrying only a faint trace of wood and memory, as if someone had erased the air itself. Maya approached the front desk, her voice trembling. "The guest in room 2701, David Grant. Where is he?" The clerk glanced at the computer, then replied, "He checked out this morning. He said if a Miss Maya Torres came by, we should give her this." He bent down and pulled out a sealed envelope. On the front, written in neat, precise letters, were just 2 words, "For Maya." Maya opened it. Inside was a short, handwritten note, steady but cold. "Thank you. Because of you, I finally slept peacefully for the first time in 3 years." Nothing more. 3 years. The number made her go still. 3 years ago, what had happened that kept a man like him from sleeping? She sat in the hotel lobby for a long time, watching people drift past like ghosts. On the wall, a large screen played financial news, flashing briefly with the logo of Grant Ventures, the company he had once founded. A thought flickered in her mind. There had to be something there. By late afternoon, Maya found her way to the old industrial district on the edge of town, the place that once housed Grant Ventures. The building stood hollow, its glass panels shattered, weeds rising up to her knees. The rusted iron gate still bore a faint, weathered sign, Grant Biotech Division. She pushed it open. Dust billowed in the air as sunlight streamed through the cracks. On the wall, a few scraps of yellowed newspaper were still barely clinging to the plaster. Maya tugged one loose. The brittle paper crumbled, revealing a bold headline beneath, "Biotech Lab Explosion Kills Lead Engineer, Wife of CEO David Grant." She read it again and again, her heart pounding louder each time. A small photo was attached. A brown-haired woman with a warm smile, holding the hand of a child, no more than 4 years old. Maya recognized her instantly. It was the same face from the framed picture on David's table. Her eyes caught on the final line printed beneath the photo. "Cause of explosion remains undetermined. CEO Grant takes full responsibility, later resigns, and disappears from the public eye. Gone." Just like he had disappeared that very morning. Maya stepped back, leaning against the cold wall, breathing deeply. Her mind filled with fragments colliding at once. The exhaustion in his eyes, the scar on his wrist, his question from the night before. If you lost everything, would you dare to start over? 3 years ago, the explosion, the wife, everything fit. On the way home, her head felt heavy, clouded like fog pressing in from all sides. The bus rolled along the coastline where the sunset poured gold over the water. She stared out to sea, her mind overflowing with questions that had no answers. Why had he chosen her? A complete stranger with nothing in common, no link to his past. Or maybe she reminded him of something. A memory, a face, or simply the feeling of having someone beside him during the last days of his wife's life. Maya didn't know. She only knew that the more she tried to understand, the deeper she was pulled into the strange gravity of David Grant, a man who had vanished from the world, yet left behind in her a fracture no amount of money could ever mend. 3 days later, Maya left the city. She borrowed an old car from a coworker and drove toward the small town where the biotech research facility, where David's wife had once worked, used to stand. The town was tucked between misty valleys, its streets veiled in fog, its faded signs whispering of a past no one dared to mention. No one spoke of the explosion anymore, yet the air still felt heavy, as if it were holding on to a secret that had never been told. She stopped the car in front of the old facility, now nothing more than a stained block of concrete, its fence wrapped in rusted wire. At a small cafe nearby, she asked a few questions, and after several wary glances, an older woman agreed to meet her. The woman introduced herself as Nora, a retired lab technician who had once worked at the institute. When Maya mentioned David's wife's name, Nora fell silent for a long moment. Her eyes flickered with hesitation. She was brilliant, Nora said finally, but reckless. There were things she shouldn't have touched. Maya leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Nora glanced around the cafe, lowering her voice. "The explosion wasn't an accident. Someone tampered with the control system. But the institute covered it up. The police ruled it as a technical failure, because the one who took the blame was David Grant himself." Maya froze. "He took the fall for it?" Nora shrugged. "Or maybe he did it to reclaim the company. I don't know. There were rumors that just a few weeks after his wife's death, the board transferred full ownership of Grant Ventures back to him. Think about it. Who gets that lucky after a tragedy like that?" The words pierced Maya's mind like a needle of ice. She sat still, staring out the dusty cafe window. Fragments began to flash in her head. David's eyes, the scar on his wrist, that sorrowful smile when he spoke of losing everything. Could he really have been the one responsible for his wife's death? A man haunted by guilt, hiding behind silence and lies? By late afternoon, Maya drove back to the city. She didn't turn on the radio. Only the sound of rain tapping against the windshield filled the car. Her thoughts spun in circles, chasing questions that had no answers. But when she turned onto the narrow street leading to her apartment, she saw a figure standing under the awning. David, soaked from the rain, shirt clinging dark against his skin, hands in his pockets, as if he had been waiting there for a long time. Maya stepped out, her heart pounding. "Have you been following me?" David didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, tired, but not angry. "You want the truth," he said hoarsely. "Then don't believe a single article ever written about me." "Then who should I believe?" "Your own eyes." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn key attached to a metal tag engraved with an address. "If you're brave enough to hear the rest." She hesitated, then followed him. They drove for nearly 2 hours, the road twisting along the mountainside. At last, the car stopped before a wooden house perched precariously on the edge of a cliff, the ocean stretching endlessly below. The place was silent, except for the wind howling through the cracks in the door. David unlocked the door and pushed it open. The smell of damp wood and old paper spilled out. Maya took a step back when she saw what was inside. An entire room filled with files, hard drives, and photographs taken from security cameras. David flipped on a light. The dim yellow glow washed over his face, making him look both familiar and distant at once. "This is where she really worked," he said evenly. "Not at the Institute's main office. A core, I kept everything because I knew one day someone would need to see it." He walked to the desk and pulled out a stack of photos. The night of the explosion, she wasn't on duty, but she was there. Alone. Maya stared at the photographs. The woman in the lab coat stood under the harsh fluorescent light, the reflection of the control panel gleaming on her goggles. Her expression was tense, focused. In the corner of the frame, a blur. David, rushing toward her, panic in his eyes, trying to pull her away. A split second later, the image flared white. "She was testing a gene sample that hadn't been approved for trial," he said, his voice catching. "I found out too late. The safety system had been overridden. She did it to speed up the process. I tried to stop her, but by the time I got to her, there was nothing left but fragments." Maya turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Then why did you take all the blame?" David turned away, his gaze fixed on the window. "Because if the truth came out, the project would have been shut down forever." She believed it could save thousands of lives. I couldn't let her name become that of a criminal scientist. He exhaled heavily. What I didn't expect was that the world only wanted a simple story to blame, and I, the only one left alive, became the villain they needed. The air in the room grew thick, almost suffocating. Maya moved slowly, her eyes tracing the dust-covered files, the unfinished notes, the gentle handwriting of the woman who was gone, still faintly smelling of old ink. Her throat tightened. David's voice dropped to a whisper. I didn't pay you $50,000 to buy your body. I just wanted to buy back the feeling that maybe someone could still believe me, even if it was only for one night. Maya stood still, unable to speak. She looked at him, the man whose face seemed carved from stone, yet carried wounds that would never heal. In that moment, she understood. His loneliness didn't come from loss. It came from the unbearable truth that no one believed he was innocent anymore. Outside, waves crashed violently against the cliffs, the ocean wind whipping through her hair. In the old wooden house, the faint rustle of papers sounded like the past stirring awake. And Maya knew, from that instant on, she had become the only person left willing to face the truth the world had chosen to forget. In the days that followed, Maya drifted between dream and reality. Ever since leaving the house on the cliff, her mind replayed David's image, his deep, steady voice, those eyes that carried both strength and ruin. She planned to see him again, to ask the questions she hadn't dared to before. But he was gone. His phone disconnected, the cabin locked tight. All she could do was wait. One morning, while stopping by the corner store, Maya caught the sound of whispers behind her. She turned and saw the small TV mounted on the wall, playing the morning news. On the screen, a photo of her and David standing outside the hotel appeared, clear as day. The headline scrolled across in bold letters, "Fugitive tech millionaire spotted with mysterious young woman." The anchor's voice followed, smooth and practiced. Sources confirm the woman works at a seaside spa where Grant was last seen. Media outlets are now speculating about the nature of their relationship. Maya froze, her breath caught in her chest. She had no idea which reporter had followed them, but it was clear someone had been watching long before she knew. When she returned to the spa, her boss was already waiting, expression cold, unreadable. "I can't let you keep working here, Maya. The press is dragging my spa through the mud. You understand, don't you?" "But I didn't do anything wrong." "It doesn't matter. The customers don't want to see you here anymore." The words hit her like a collapse from inside out. She was fired on the spot. No explanation, no severance, nothing. That night, as she got home, her phone rang. It was her neighbor. Her mother had been rushed to the hospital after seeing her daughter's face on the news. In the hospital room, Maya sat holding her mother's fragile hand. The older woman's breathing was shallow, her voice trembling. "You got involved with that man, didn't you, Maya? Do you know what they're saying about him?" Maya couldn't answer. The fear and disappointment in her mother's eyes were enough to make her chest tighten until she could barely breathe. The days that followed were a storm. Reporters shadowed her everywhere, outside the hospital, in front of her apartment, even calling at night with veiled threats. And David, the only person who could explain any of it, had vanished, as if he had never existed. A week later, when Maya was on the edge of exhaustion, her phone rang. A deep, gravelly voice came through the line. "Miss Torres? I'm the legal representative of Mr. Grant. He left something for you, in case something went wrong." She hesitated, then agreed to meet. The cafe where they arranged to talk was nearly empty, heavy with the scent of over-roasted coffee and the steady rhythm of rain against the windows. The man wore a long brown coat, his face lined with age, his eyes unreadable. He set a small envelope on the table in front of her. Inside was a black USB drive. He said, "It's for you only, no one else, and never to send it over the internet." "Where is he?" Maya asked, her voice trembling. The man studied her for a long moment, then said quietly, "If you want to know, watch it." And with that, he left, leaving her alone at the table. That night, Maya locked every door, drew the curtains, and turned on her laptop. She plugged in the USB. The screen went black for a few seconds, then flickered to life. David appeared, sitting in the wooden house on the cliff, the warm yellow light washing over his gaunt face. His voice came slowly, each word measured and heavy. as if he were speaking directly to her. If you're watching this, it means I've run out of options. There are people who don't want the truth to be known. They were my partners at Grant Ventures. When the explosion happened, they forced me to take the blame, to bury the evidence. I stayed silent, thinking that silence might protect her honor. But I was wrong. They still wanted me gone. He paused, taking a deep breath. Lately, I discovered they've reopened the old project, David said, his voice steady but fraying at the edges. They're using her research for something she feared most. I tried to stop them, but they control everything now. I may not have much time left to make it right. He looked straight into the camera then, eyes tired, but unshakably resolute. Do you really think I chose you by chance, Maya? I know you studied medicine once. I know you understand the human body, how to keep someone alive when they've already given up. I didn't need pity. I needed someone who could save me if things got out of control. His voice caught on the last words. Then he gave a faint, familiar smile, the same gentle warmth she'd seen that night at the hotel. If you're watching this, then I'm probably in real danger. Maya sat frozen. Her body trembled, tears spilling before she even realized. He hadn't run away. He hadn't betrayed anyone. He was being hunted, and she was the only one who knew. She burst out of the apartment and drove, the car tearing down the winding mountain road. The wind howled, the tires screeched on wet asphalt, but her mind held only one thought. She had to find him. When she reached the cliffside house, thick black smoke was already rising into the sky. Flames consumed the cabin, roaring against the ocean wind as firefighters struggled to contain it. A man nearby glanced at her and said, "They say someone was inside. They found a ring and a watch, but no body." That night, every news channel carried the same headline: Tech millionaire missing after suspected suicide fire. Maya sat before the screen, her hands trembling. She couldn't believe it. He couldn't be dead. She replayed the video, scrubbing toward the very end. After a few seconds of static, David's voice returned. Lower now, almost a whisper. If you're seeing this, it means I chose to disappear, not to die. Maya collapsed forward, tears mixing with the sound of rain pounding against the window. She knew, from that moment on, the world would believe he was gone. But inside her, the fire of truth had only just begun to burn. A year later, the sea breeze in her new town still carried the salt of memory, but Maya had learned to breathe without pain. She lived in a small house by the bay, the ground floor turned into a therapy room with a simple wooden sign above the door, Renew. The sign was carved by her own hand, each letter slightly tilted, humble and imperfect, like her life, rebuilt quietly after the storm. She worked alone, no ads, no neon signs, only welcoming those who sought peace rather than service. The room always carried the faint scent of peppermint oil and the soft hum of music that breathed like the tide. Sometimes travelers wandered in, sometimes locals came because of whispered stories. They called her the girl with the healing hands. On the wooden shelf beside the counter, Maya kept an old frayed envelope. Inside it still lay the $50,000 David had once given her. She had never spent a cent, not out of fear, but because it served as a reminder that trust, sometimes, is worth more than money. That afternoon, sunlight poured through the window, stretching long across the white curtains. Maya was tidying the room when the bell above the door chimed. A man stepped inside, tall, wearing a dark coat and a baseball cap pulled low to hide half his face. His voice was low and quiet, roughened like someone who had been away too long. "Miss Torres, I heard this place offers a therapy that helps people forget old memories." Maya smiled softly. "I don't help people forget the past," she said. "I just help them stop letting it hurt." The man gave a slight nod and slipped off his shoes at the door. Throughout the entire session, he barely spoke, only answering in quiet murmurs when she asked how he felt. When it was over, he sat up, and the sunlight streaming through the window caught his face, just enough to reveal a faint scar along his wrist. A small detail, but it made Maya's heart tighten. He paid, placing a credit card on the table. "Thank you," he said gently. "I think I might actually sleep tonight." The door closed behind him, and the wind chime above it rang with a soft, trembling note. Maya looked down at the table. The card read, D. Garrison. A perfectly ordinary name, one that would mean nothing to anyone else. But the signature in the corner, she knew it instantly. She opened the drawer and took out an old photograph. David smiling in the wooden house on the cliff. On the back, his signature curved across the paper. The same distinctive slant in the letter D that now graced the credit card. Her hands trembled, not from shock, but from a feeling she couldn't quite name. She looked out the window. Beyond the glass, the man was walking down the path toward the sea, the brim of his cap still low, his stride unhurried, as if he had never vanished at all, only chosen a different way to exist. Maya smiled faintly, her whisper carried away by the breeze. You didn't die, you just chose to live differently. The afternoon quieted, the horizon washed in gold and crimson. She turned back to the table, opened the old envelope, and gazed at the crisp, folded bills still untouched. No one else would ever understand, but she did. They weren't payment for a night. They were a reminder of a man who once believed that sincerity could still be bought back, with a little courage and a little compassion. Maya slid the envelope back into the drawer and stepped out onto the porch. The waves rolled in rhythmically, the ocean wind lifting her hair. In that moment, she no longer felt like the victim of anyone's story. She was simply a woman who had once been given a chance to see that kindness still existed, even in a world that doubted everything. She closed her eyes, letting the breeze carry her final whisper away. Not every offer is meant to buy something. Some nights are paid for only to remind us we're still human. Far in the distance, the sound of waves blended with the soft chime of wind bells. Gentle, elusive, yet enough to tell Maya that somewhere out there, he was still alive. Living under another name, in another form, within a world only those who've lost everything could truly understand. The world where beginning again is its own kind of miracle.